Hockey Inside Out, presented to you by the Montreal Gazette.
Welcome to the Hockey Inside Out Show. I'm Montreal Gazette sports editor Stu Cowan. We're a man down today. Unfortunately, Chris Nyland was a late, unhealthy scratch. He's not feeling very well. But I'm joined by Jack Todd and Jessica Rusnak. Jack, the Canadiens pick up a point in Nashville. First team in the NHL to reach 100 points. Despite critics of this team, this is a good hockey team.
This is a good hockey team. I don't know why we have such a hard time admitting it in Montreal. I was out and about the other day. A guy I know grabs me. I don't want to say where because I don't want to identify him. He says, they've got no chance. You know, the Rangers in Tampa Bay, they've got no chance. The Rangers are going to win the Cup. And he said, mark my words, the Canadiens are never going to win the Cup while they have a French-Canadian coach.
That says a lot.
But the Rangers are going to win.
But the Rangers are going to win with Alain Vigneault, exactly. And Bob Hartley in Calgary. And that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. With parity and the salary cap, Jessica, every team has issues. Every team has holes in you to fill. But I think goaltending fills so many of them. And I think if you're going to build a team now going forward, you need to build from the goalie out. And
this has to be the method. If you look at every team, with the exception of maybe, you know, the Chicago Blackhawks a few years ago with Antti Niemi, you know, he's a good goaltender, but he doesn't come to mind when you're talking about the great goaltenders of the NHL, that you need to start with a good goaltender, because how many times have we seen so far this year of Carey Price stealing a game or just gaining confidence for his team by making an incredible save? And a lot of the guys say that they get a lot more motivation from the bench when they see Carey Price playing the way that they have to. So this has to be the model. And look at Bob Gainey when he drafted Carey Price. Everyone was saying, what is he doing? Another goaltender? We don't need that. Well, this has been the best thing that I think Bob Gainey has done for the Canadiens as a GM for them.
He is a thoroughbred. I mean, he's there's no argument that I think he's going to win the Hart Trophy this year.
Yeah, I think so.
Jack, you covered Jose Theodore during his Hart Trophy season. Do you see comparisons or differences between the two?
I do. I mean, Theodore did it more the miraculous way. In a way, it was more fun to watch when he was on because it was all these diving. You know,
although Price had that backwards skate save in Nashville. I haven't seen anything like that.
That was one for the ages. Yeah. But in general, Jose, it was more that last minute flailing about kind of thing, whereas Carey, it's more he's in the right position and he makes it all look so easy. And thinking about it, looking back, I always thought Theodore's Hart season was a bit of a fluke. You know, when you look at the rest of his career, it wasn't really at that level, so it must have been. But, you know, I was reading a statistical analysis of it yesterday, and really, they were very close to the same kind of performance. And the amazing thing, actually, everybody talks about the Canadiens getting outshot by so much. The disparity isn't nearly as bad as it was with Theodore. They're about 160 down now on shots for the year. Theodore, it was 500. Dominik Hasek, in one of the 2 years when he won it, it was almost, the shot differential was almost 700 for the Sabres. And yet he was able to get them to the playoffs. So Carey isn't facing quite the same level of lead that Theodore had to stare down. There are a lot of similarities. I think with Price, the difference is you expect it to carry on for a decade into the future.
Well, I didn't cover Theodore, so I don't really know from the insider's point of view, but I just find that Theodore was more of a flash in the pan, where, as you mentioned, Carey Price is supposed to be, you know, someone that's going to carry this team for many years to come for it. And also, too, I feel that Price is a little bit more he doesn't have that party boy reputation anymore. You know, he was a young guy. He learned his way through Montreal, and now he's, you know, married. He's settled down. He really takes his job seriously. Whereas with Theodore, you did sort of hear these, you know, rumors about him going out, staying out late at night. So maybe that had something to do with him as well, not being able to carry this on for years.
And Carey doesn't need to use that hair tonic that Theodore tested positive for. That's it. Now, heading into the playoffs, it looks like possible opponents for Montreal are Ottawa or Boston if they get in. Is there one of those teams that scares you more than the other?
Both.
I'm not scared at all about Boston. Just for whatever reason, the Canadiens do such a good job getting into their heads. And if you look at just the way that they played them so far this year, every single game, it just seemed that the Canadiens were able to get them off their game. And that's what they do in the playoffs as well. So I think for them, if they do play Boston in the playoffs, they can carry that sort of mindset again into it. Whereas with Ottawa, I don't know what it is, but Ottawa seems to have the Canadiens' numbers. And I feel like the momentum that they've gained with their goaltender and everything that's been going on, that they're the Cinderella story, and they have so many people from the, if their NHL team's eliminated, they're going to start cheering for the Ottawa Senators just because they like what they've been able to do. So they're the team I'm most scared
But
about.
we're talking about building from the goalie out. I think that's one of Boston's problems now. Tuukka Rask. I don't think that the team has faith in him, and you wonder if the Bruins don't make the playoffs and they clean house, is goaltending part of what they need to change?
I mean, maybe they have to go to PK's little brother because really Rask, I mean, there was a point when you probably would have rated him slightly above Price, and now he's gone south, and you see what it does to a team. Like you mentioned before with Price, the effect he has on a team. I've always felt that the biggest impact a goalie has isn't the saves he makes, it's the impact that those saves have on his team. Because I've seen it, I've covered teams here that had weak goaltending, when they went from Patrick Waugh to Jocelyn Thibault. Poor Thibault from the press box, you could see his shoulders slump. You could just see the discouragement. And he'd let in a couple soft ones, and you just see the legs go on the whole team. So the effect spreads out so strongly. And obviously Rask isn't getting it done this year. The Senators are scary, but the one thing about them to me is they've been in playoff hockey mode now for a month and a half. How long can they sustain this? What are they going to have left come playoff time? But basically, Boston. I honestly, I think the Canadiens are better off not winning the division and getting Detroit in the first round.
And the Hamburglar is the story in the NHL right now. And you're saying, goalies come out of nowhere. He's one of those guys that sort of come out of nowhere and going to lead the Senators, it looks like, into the playoffs. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. There was a comment on the HIO site this week about Ottawa has the Hamburglar and Montreal has the hot dog. Obviously, and I think we know who they're talking about there. PK Subban's penalty in overtime against Nashville, is he to blame? Is that another too much mustard on the hot dog?
That was pure unadulterated PK. You get 45 seconds of PK doing all the things he can do, holding off the entire Nashville team, backhanding the puck and everything, and then he carries it that 5 seconds too far.
But that's a perfect example that I think every coach would use to try. When you do too much, yes, it can work out, but there is that other risk that it won't, and then you end up losing the game for your team by taking that penalty. And something that I've noticed too, that the Canadiens, a lot of times when they have when they're on the penalty kill during an overtime period, I find they're not all that successful when it comes to it. That a lot of this, I knew last night, I said, you know what, here we go. I know Nashville's going to end up scoring here. That for whatever reason that they just can't be able to get their PK to work. I know it's a little bit different. It's a 4-on-3 situation, but I would have to say that that's a perfect example of just trying too much.
It's weird because the PK is so good in normal circumstances, but it's like you might as well concede at that point the way they're playing right now.
Well, let's talk about going to 3-on-3 in overtime. I'm thinking PK Subban, that would be just made for him. There'd be one less guy to sort of...
So if you get a penalty, then you're 3-on-2. That's what I want to see.
Now, he was also fined again by the NHL for diving the second time. Are the refs being...
they're being ridiculous. They're being ridiculous. I think, and I know where it's coming from. It's coming from the league. My deepest, darkest suspicions, I think it's coming from the mouth of Jeremy Jacobs to the ear of Gary Bettman and downhill like that, because Jacobs has Bettman's ear more than any other owner in the league. This is Boston's bet
campaign
noir.
that they've
Get
had
him into the playoffs. Boston needs to try and get into the playoffs.
PK dies. Brad Marchand doesn't, but PK does. Well, BS, And if they're going to call it that way, then give PK some calls too, because right now you can hit him over the head with a 2-before and nothing happens.
And you can hit Gallagher over the head with a 2x4 too. Going into the playoffs, I'm wondering, is this really a concern, you think, Jessica?
Well, what bothered me the most with the PK second one is the fact that they went over and looked over the tape, and I even went through the box score, and it didn't say that he drew any sort of penalty from it. So to me, you need to catch the person in the act. It's one thing then to go back and look at game tape and say, oh, here, this was a diving penalty, but especially that game against the Ottawa Senators, Bobby Ryan was able to get a high sticking penalty and had Tom Pyatt go to the box for it, and it was the biggest, dramatic experience I think I've ever seen there, that there was nothing for Bobby Ryan. How come, on one side of the ice, PK Subban is fine, but there's nothing about Bobby Ryan? So I think this can be a concern going into the playoffs, that the Canadiens have this mark on them, and that certain refs won't call certain things or, get them penalized because of it.
And the fines are ridiculous anyway.
Well, it's $3,000.
The only point is shaming. I mean,
well, that's
PK
it. It's
with
embarrassing him, right?
Year, it doesn't,
Maybe they need to do what they do in Europe, where the leading goal scorer wears a gold helmet. Maybe if you get fined for diving, you need to wear dunce cap or something.
The
I
fifth
don't know.
one, Michel Terrier will be fine. So
Oh, that's right. I want to see that one. That could be interesting. You're taking money out of my pocket. One of the things I worry about too going into the playoffs, Marc Bergevin said he's in no hurry to name a captain for this team. I'm just wondering, is there any concern going into the playoffs not having somebody with the C, Jack?
Not to me at all, because you have such good leaders on that team, the guys who are all wearing the A. And to me, the de facto captain is and always will be Carey Price, even if they give the C to Max next year. You know, I'm not concerned about that. I really think it's worked well all season. I don't see it not working in the playoffs.
To me, if the Montreal Canadiens didn't have the history that they've had with captains, I think this team would remain captainless, you know, for a few more seasons until someone really evolved as the captain. I don't think in the room it's a big bother. A lot of the guys, even remember starting the season, said it's really just sort of the liaison between the media and the players, and just kind of the guy that takes the bullet for, you know, after a bad loss or anything like that. But I don't think it's a concern in the room. But I think because it is the Montreal Canadiens, that there will be a captain named next year, just because of the tradition.
I mean, Boston used to go with 4 assistant captains back in the days of Phil Esposito. I'm wondering if it's in Montreal, it's even better because it splits up. You know, there's so much media focus, and instead of having the one guy, remember Saku Koivu was always there, and you know, and good for Saku, he was always there. He was always there, but maybe it's better to keep 4 A's and
I like the way how they have it too, because Markov and Plekanec, they're not guys that feel comfortable speaking to the media, and then you have Pacioretty and Subban that kind of take that role, and the other two guys are the leaders by example that have a lot of respect from the guys in the room.
They're reluctant to it also. Now the Canadiens have struggled scoring goals all year. They're ranked 22nd at 2.55 per game. They're number 1 in defense. They're going into the playoffs. 3 of the top 4 teams in scoring are Tampa Bay, the Rangers, and the Islanders. And at some point, the Canadiens are going to need to meet these guys.
I think Jason York had the solution in the Nashville game. He said the Habs just need to get a good dump. That won't fix everything.
Maybe that is the issue.
Maybe that is the issue. That could be it.
But seriously, I would point out that I was looking back after some arrogant Twitter troll got on my case because I said you can.
Are there some of them out there?
No,
one or two?
Thousands. But the case was that I said a defensive team could win the Stanley Cup, and in fact often does win. And the odd thing I found out when I looked a little closer is that the Canadiens this season will actually outscore the Kings through the regular season in both the Los Angeles Stanley Cup seasons. So they're not that far down in scoring.
And I don't necessarily see it as that much of a concern. Obviously, having a lot more goals gives you a better chance to win games, but you also do have Carey Price, who's able to stop a lot of the shots that he sees. So to me, it's kind of whatever works for your team and can get you through, then, let that be it.
My biggest concern there is the lack of a power play, because it does 2 things. Last night, a power play goal could have been really useful. And the other thing is teams take liberties with you because they know you're not going to score when you have the man.
It's remarkable they've gotten this long without being able to fix it.
I think that ship has sailed, that they have packed up on the power play and
we'll kill penalties. And
we will figure it out.
Last night, and I'm sorry, but PK, he's often the place where the power play goes to die. Last night he was back to that wind-up looking for the big slapper again, and
well, they're going to ride that thoroughbred as far as they can. That's basically how it's going to go. That's it for this week. Chris Nyland, get well soon. Hope to see you back here next week.